Wasted potential. Now, excuse any audio interruptions that may or may not happen. Certain things are going on, what have you. But I'm back on the channel, back with this series. And this episode is about Rhyno. Now, someone suggested this video. If you like to suggest a video, you can always donate to the Cash App, XDN Online. It's in the description of this video. And you can get the video request that you like, or a topic, or a question answered, what have you. Or if you just want to support the channel, you can donate there. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to this channel. Now, Rhyno, as far as my knowledge goes, he came up in the independent wrestling scene of Canada. Now, Rhyno is from, I believe, Detroit, Michigan, the Michigan area, I believe. And in the early to mid-90s, he befriended Edge and Christian, and also a wrestler who went on to be known as, I believe it was Just Joe. A very obscure gimmick in the Attitude Era that lasted like 2 weeks. Basically, he was like an instigator. He's kind of like a Dave Meltzer character. He went around saying news that was wrong, instigating, whatever. Just Joe. Look him up for whatever reason. And when Rhyno is on the independent scene, he is trying to get signed to WCW. He's trying to get signed to the World Wrestling Federation. And that does not happen. At that same time, Edge had worked on WCW Saturday Night as Sexton Hardcastle. And I do believe Rhyno did do some, I guess, enhancement matches for the two big companies, or at least I believe WWF. And they didn't see anything in him to sign him. In that mid-90s, when you look at like a 95, 96, 97, WWF didn't have like really a developmental. They had, around like 96, they kind of had a relationship with Memphis Wrestling. And then, they developed relationships with Ohio Valley Wrestling and Memphis Power Pro. And, they had some connections to Puerto Rico later on. But they didn't have like a real developmental system. When Jim Ross takes over in the talent relations, that's when they kind of develop, okay, we need our own farm system. And also around that time of the 96s, 97, 98s, this is also a time where the Monday Night Wars are going on, and then you have the infamous roster jumping, and that became one gigantic legal fiasco or a dispute in between WWF and WCW, which is why you kind of stopped seeing that around 2000. And at that time, that also led to, we can't keep, WWF, the office, realized we can't keep relying on, let's get ECW guys or WCW guys. We have to develop our own. So, when they get to 98, they have Dory Funk's Funkin' Dojo. And this is when they sign Kurt Angle, and he's in it. The Hardy Boys are in it. Edge and Christian are in it. And Rhyno ended up finding his way to ECW. Now, it's just beautiful how everything ties back together when I say it. It's the Most High's anointing. When Rhyno is starting to get booked and used in ECW, it's in the year of 1999. Now, when you get to 1999, so much of the ECW roster was depleted, or by when you get to around the fall of 99, it's pretty much been, ravaged. And when you look at late 1999, let's say about October, by that time, Taz is still doing ECW dates, but he's already signed with the WWF. That was a deal. And, Taz fits perfectly for this series. Wasted potential. Oh, my God. Sometimes wasted potential is the individual lacked the work ethic. Sometimes it's politics. Sometimes this person was misused. Sometimes this person was buried. And Taz was definitely misused when he left ECW. But that's maybe another episode, another day. Hit that like button. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. Check out my other channels. The links are in the description of this video. But when you look at that late fall of 1999 ECW, Taz is pretty much gone. He's just finishing up his dates. You know, Raven had left in 97, then he came back, but Raven was there on a short deal. He was going to leave. I do believe Raven might have been the first. No, I think Raven might have been the second episode of this series. I think the first one was The Big Show. Go look up the playlist on this channel of Wasted Potential. It's a great series. But Raven was on there. When Raven came back to ECW, it was for a short stay. It was known that he was going to be there. And then in 2000, his deal expired, and then he was going to try and get to WWF, which did happen. And I explained how that went in that episode of Wasted Potential about Raven. The Dudley Boys are in New York at this time, back to late 99. And, you know, Shane Douglas is in WCW. Sonny and Candido are on the way to WCW soon. Bigelow's in WCW. Sandman had went to WCW, and now at this time he had come back. But ECW was just not the same as it had been in 95, 96, 97 as far as the heat, the hype, the buzz, and the talent roster. But that opened up chances for someone like Rhyno, someone who could not get to the World Wrestling Federation, someone who could not get to WCW. So, pretty much, Heyman used Rhyno as he booked him like an actual Rhino from like the Spider-Man comic books. If you're familiar, Rhyno was a villain in Spider-Man, and he tried to run and gore you with the horn on his head or whatever the case. So literally, he booked Rhyno like a superhero villain where he's just a destruction smashing machine. Speaking of being a smashing machine, Vince McMahon was at this puffy party with some white broad named Janelle, and then Johnny Ace walked in with people power. Anyway, and Rhyno was used as a bulldozer, not to mention Bulldozer Brian Lee, former ECW alum. And they put Rhyno with the combination of Steve Corino and Jack Victory. And Rhyno really got a massive push kind of from the beginning as far as just destruction. And very quickly, Heyman pushed Rhyno pretty much into the main event scene. And, you know, they did angles where I believe in 2000, Van Dam had broke his ankle. And they did an angle where Don Callis was the network guy. And then Van Dam comes to the ring. And then Rhyno gores him. So they tried to push Rhyno. The problem is, to push someone to the top, they have to have someone to really go against. And Van Dam was hurt at the time. And really, when you get to 2000, Heyman's only options are Just Incredible, Tommy Dreamer, and Dreamer, who is not Wasted Potential. I never really cared for Tommy Dreamer. To me, he was always just a guy, but whatever. But when you get to 2000, Tommy Dreamer was so banged up. Here we go with that again. He was very worn down, very hurt at that time. He had a horrible back injury. I believe he had a foot injury. He's someone who tacked on the injuries throughout the years. And so you couldn't really, I don't want to say rely on Dreamer, but, you know, and plus Dreamer, he always said he never wanted to be a world champion. He never wanted to have a belt in wrestling. He just wanted to be a wrestler. Kind of a mark, but whatever. Yeah, Dreamer's a mark. Dreamer is like Ric Flair. He'll cry at the drop of a hat because they ran out of kamikazes. Flair wooed in a blind woman's face. Oh, God. This business. And, you know, Heyman wasn't going to ever put the belt on New Jack because that's a liability. So when you look at that early 2000, you know, that you had the Mike Awesome fiasco. Oh, Lord. Taz comes back, and then oh, man. Yeah, that Taz episode, that might be an hour-long episode. Anyway, but, you know, the options are limited for Heyman. Jerry Lynn, Credible, Steve Corino. And at some point, he does push Rhyno to the maximum. And the problem with Rhyno was he was a destruction. He was a machine, but he never spoke. And I guess when you fast forward to the TNA years, I guess he was a solid interview, but a character like that has to have some sort of personality. It can't just be destroying people. It can't just be power driving Sandman's wife through a table. brutal image. Good Lord. So, but Rhyno, he did end up being, at the end of ECW's last world champion, and I believe the last television champion. So ECW goes out of business in early 2001, as you should know. Heyman goes to the WWF. Right at the exact time, it's very odd. Lawler leaves the company because they fired his wife, the Cat. That fiasco. I might have to do a video on that. The controversies of Jerry Lawler, another bigot like Cornette. And stay tuned. The stupidity of Jim Cornette. That series shall return very soon. And probably the next waste of potential might be Sunny, Tammy Lynn Sitch, most likely. And probably, maybe like a Sean O'Hare. I don't believe I did Sean O'Hare yet, but this is a series that can go on a long time, and that's the beauty of it. Make sure you hit the like button. So ECW closes, WCW closes, and Heyman, who's in the WWF now, he helps to put in a word about, guys that should get signed. So, even before ECW closed, in late 2000, there were very strong rumors that Jerry Lynn was going to jump to the WWF, to Jerry. There are certain people that were rumored to be jumping. They did not, I don't believe. But when Heyman comes over, he does put in a word. Now, Heyman, and I might have to start a series on Heyman too, because Heyman had a lot of dirty politics. Heyman got a lot of people buried. Heyman shut down a lot of people from getting signed to WWF. He did. These marks love to praise Heyman. He can do no wrong. Russo's the Antichrist, but Heyman is... Oh, never mind. Where's this video going? But Rhyno was someone who Heyman liked. And also, Rhyno was young. And he did not tack on the injuries like a Tommy Dreamer, like a Terry Funk, like many others. He wasn't damaged goods like a Shane Douglas was at this time. Shane Douglas, I don't know if I gotta revisit if I did a Shane Douglas episode. There's so many people that fit this. But Rhyno gets signed. He comes in, and it was full circle because when he comes into the WWF, Just Joe, he had just been released. Good God. And I believe he just been released, or I think he didn't last too long in the WWF. But at the same time, when Rhyno comes over, right around WrestleMania 17, Edge and Christian are at the top of wrestling. You can say they're the top tag team in wrestling at that time. And they did a stable where it was Edge, Christian, Rhyno, and Kurt Angle. So it was a full circle. Rhyno and his two friends, Edge and Christian, who had those long Canadian road trips. You can find the stories online about the crazy trips. And they met at the top in the World Wrestling Federation. And Rhyno caught on very quickly with the WWF audience. He was promoted like another killing machine. The gore was vicious. Oh my! I mean, if you watch wrestling, you had seen Edge do the spear. You had seen Goldberg's spear. But Rhino's version of the spear, which was the gore, that was some vicious, violent, just frightening. I remember, I still have the Raw on tape. I believe it's the Raw. It's a Raw around the Backlash '01 buildup, and they did a match where they were doing a storyline where Eddie Guerrero was trying to get friendly with the Hardy Boys and Lita, and they had a match where Rhyno, I think it was like Matt Hardy and Eddie Guerrero versus Rhyno and someone else. I can't remember. And there's a spot in the match where Lita gets in the ring and Rhyno almost gores Lita, and it was frightening. And then Eddie Guerrero jumped in, but that move got him over so quickly. Him and Rob Van Dam, they got over huge with the audience, and a big part of that was the brilliance of Paul Heyman, because not only was Heyman a writer for SmackDown, Heyman was on commentary with JR, and Heyman would push so hard, gore, gore, gore. Heyman understood how to get people over on commentary. That's something these announcers the last 20 years don't get. Michael Cole has never got one person over. Corey Graves, Excalibur, these announcers, they don't know how to get people over. They know how to ramble for 2 hours and make you find the mute button on your remote. Heyman understood the psychology of wrestling announcing. and he helped get Rhyno over, Van Dam over, so on and so forth. So when Rhyno was getting a buzz in the summer of 2000, goring Jeff Hardy into oblivion, you know, he was catching on and catching on and catching on. But as you go through 2001 and 2002, Rhyno breaks his neck. This was where you get the wasted potential. Now, this is a separate video I'm going to do, so I don't want to go too in depth with it. But the WWF started having very serious issues around the 2000 to, let's say, 2003 with broken neck injuries. That's going to be that might be the next video after this one. I don't want to go too deep into that, pause. But Rhyno was a victim of this, and also at this time, when I have a video on this as well on the channel that I did, it's called Vince McMahon's Desperate Ratings Ploys after WCW closed, and one of his ploys was, let's do hyper-violent matches. So Rhyno was a part of that, and he ended up breaking his neck. And when you fast forward to the summer of 2002, this is when they bring in Eric Bischoff. And they do a segment at some point where Bischoff is speaking to somebody. Oh, I can't wait to have you back. I can't wait for you to get back. And they turn the camera and it's Rhyno. And Rhyno got a good reaction. He'd been off the television. But when Rhyno returns, I believe in 2003, the buzz he had in 2001 had completely died out and fizzled out. And he no longer got pushed. Rhyno no longer got pushed. They had him in like some random tag team with Chris Benoit. It never looked right. I believe, 04, they put him in a random tag team with Tajiri. They just made him another guy. They stopped pushing him, which I never understood. It was as if he broke his neck and they lost faith in him. Which makes no sense. If you lose faith, why not release the person? No, just keep him. So they just made Rhyno another guy on the roster and literally did nothing with him. And Rhyno was someone who he understood that they were doing nothing with him, and he understood he had the talent to really excel. So he did get frustrated, and he did have some bitterness, as he should. You have a lot of stupid people on the internet, breaking news. You have a lot of morons in the comments who, when they see someone speak, they're like, oh, you're bitter, you're bitter. Yes, because there are things in life that make you bitter, you moron. People on the internet who leave comments of, this person sounds bitter, that's because they were done wrong. And clearly you never lived a life where you were done wrong in this fashion, because things happen in life that make you bitter. But the people in the comments are always people with no perspective, no logic, and nothing of real meaning to say. And the ones that do, their comments get lost by the idiots. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to this channel. So Rhyno, when you fast forward, he has a blow up at WrestleMania 21 with his wife at the post-WrestleMania party. And Rhyno is released shortly afterwards. Now, in 2005, in the summer, this is when they had, I believe it was 04, maybe they released the Rise and Fall of ECW 0405, and the DVD did tremendously, so they thought there might be an audience for an ECW reboot. So they bring back ECW for One Night Stand, one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time. Check out my video on my wrestling DVD collection. I just uploaded that a few weeks ago. And that's one of my favorite shows and favorite DVDs. Both of them, the Rise and Fall and the One Night Stand. And they bring back Rhyno. And in typical ECW Mark fashion, the audience is chanting, "You got fired" at Rhyno, which is hilarious. So they released Rhyno, and then they brought him back for the show a few months later. And it was just a one-night thing. And then eventually Rhyno, he ends up debuting in TNA Wrestling. Now, in TNA, Rhyno immediately was pushed to the main event. Maybe a bit too hard, maybe a bit too soon. He was right in that mix with Jeff Jarrett and so on and so forth, along with the Dudley Boys and certain ex-ECW stars. I believe Sabu was in TNA. It was a whole ECW TNA invasion. And Rhyno was pushed very hard, very well. And this was another situation of wasted potential. Rhyno was getting a good reaction. He was back to being a vicious with the gore. And the problem this time is he met Jeff Jarrett's reign of terror. Jeff Jarrett was someone who, and this might be another video, how Jeff Jarrett held and buried TNA's roster for years and years and years, and by the time he took his foot off their necks, the company had been out of their own potential. It's very simple. Rhyno versus Jarrett at a big pay-per-view. Rhyno beats him for the world title, and let Rhyno be the champion for 6 months. Let Rhyno be the champion for 4 months. Let Rhyno be the champion for 8 months. Then he moves on, and it's Rhyno and Samoa Joe. Rhyno and... No. When it came to that early, mid-2000s, it didn't matter who you were. Even if you beat Triple H or Jarrett, at some point they're going to beat you back and no one will even remember your reign. And Rhyno was a victim of Jeff Jarrett's politics. After the Jarrett feud, the most notable thing Rhyno did in TNA was, I believe he threw the ECW title in the trash. He threw it in the trash when they brought back ECW in 2006, that disaster, that fiasco. And then he had a feud with Christian Cage. And then pretty much he just became another guy in TNA. After his TNA stint, there were points where, he was on the independent scene, what have you. And then he did return to WWE to be a comedy figure who ate crackers with Cheese Whiz with Heath Slater. And now Rhyno is pretty much back just making dates and wrestling here and there. And he's just another guy. And from what I've seen, maybe he retired, I don't know. I'm not really following Rhyno in 2024. But I did like him a lot in that 2001. They could have did so much with him. But he wasn't the only victim of wasted potential. Van Dam, Booker T, a lot of people, their abilities and talents have been wasted the last 20 years, and that's why wrestling is in the toilet like it is now. And with that said, I'm up out of here. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Please donate to the Cash App if you enjoyed this content, want to support the channel, or if you have a video idea, and that is it.